Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another edition of It Takes Two, where we look into the challenges that naturally occur in marriage and see if we can explore solutions and ways of helping couples to move forward in a loving and amicable fashion. This week I have with me, as always, my co-host, Sister Ruby Soa. Assalamu alaikum, sister. And hoping to give us the Islamic philosophical perspective, Sheikh Ili. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Pleasure to have you today, Sheikh.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
So because of time, if we can just jump straight into the first scenario, and I'll read from one of our viewers who sent in a very challenging letter. It reads, "There it takes two. After living with my wife for a couple of months, I have begun to notice that she has a problem. It has come to my attention that she's been making herself sick. She is not overweight in the slightest. I do not understand why she is doing this. I tried to talk to her about it, but she seems to get embarrassed and distressed. At first she started denying it. After that she then admitted what she was doing and she promised that she would stop. My concern is not only that this is un-Islamic, but that she is also harming her health. I do not know what else to do." I think the first thing that comes to mind, because the brothers mentioned about it being un-Islamic, if I could ask you, Sheikh, to talk about the permissibility, impermissibity, the actual jurisprudential side of the issue.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, the idea of inflicting suffering and pain upon oneself is certainly problematic in Sharia law, in the idea that if it causes unbearable or hardship or harm to one's own life and health, then it is not permissible. The question comes into the idea of whether this particular instance, this sister, is causing excessive harm to herself. Irrespective to that, inducing or forcing oneself to vomit is not permissible, or at least violates or breaks the fast if an individual is fasting during the month of Ramadan, or the making up of the month, the qada of the month. However, outside that, if it is one that is causing harm to her health, which is debilitating or something which is detrimental, then it should certainly not be done.
It would seem as if that she has, but on the surface it sounds like a psychological condition known as bulimia.
Yes.
What's your thoughts about the challenge the sister's experiencing?
Well, I think, as most of us know, this is a common issue. It's not a phenomenon because it's quite big, and it also occurs within males that start at a very young age. Actually, there's been studies to show that it can start as young as 8. I think what we must be careful with, and I must urge this to the brother, is taking an attitude of disapproval, you're harming yourself, doesn't aid the person at all. So being judgmental, because it's a psychological issue,
For sure.
Nobody in their right mind wants to harm themselves. And we've got to be clear, bulimia isn't always about self-esteem or body image. It can be a way of people coping with emotional stresses in life. They may be in a career where physically they need to look a certain way. They may be just using it as a coping mechanism, trying to control their food and their body when they can't control their surroundings. So what I would suggest to the brother is, it's good that she's admitted it, but this is something that she needs to take control of, and she needs to decide when she's ready to seek help, because this is a challenge with her. So he needs to be supportive. He needs to contact his GP, and they both need to deal with the issue as soon as possible, but realize this is a long process. This is not going to be fixed overnight, and what she needs is encouragement and support, because we don't want her to go off and hide and do this, or be extreme by, while he's sleeping, going to the fridge and binging, etc., because that does happen.
You mentioned rightly that the sister needs help and support in terms of coping, but this being like a psychological issue overall, and it can be triggered, as you said, by whether it is body image or self-esteem, or it can be related to things like depression, things like anxiety. And in relation to them being a couple, you think the husband would also need some support? How could he be supported as well as supported to support his wife, if I can put it like that?
Absolutely. I think there's no relationship, certainly as far as marriage is concerned, that doesn't come with a lot of responsibilities and many challenges. And each person, sometimes the husbands or the wife for that matter, if they're going through a situation like this, they're thinking, okay, why do I have to deal with this? This is unusual. Why is my wife like that? Or the husband would say, why am I confronted with such a scenario? And I think what we have to understand first and foremost is that what's key in a successful marriage is to appreciate that each person is different and that you will encounter a wide variety of challenges. It could be bulimia, it could be other issues, health related or otherwise. So that realization first is crucial, and the sense of loyalty as well. You know, what we find, unfortunately, in certain parts of Western culture is at the moment there is an issue or there is a challenge, the relationship between the husband and the wife weakens. Somehow they're thinking, you know what, I'm not bothered with this. Why should I have to deal with such a scenario? I mean, it may not be in this instance, but if the person is going through depression, for instance, or they've gone through a bereavement, or whatever it is, the support is so essential in a marital relationship. And what happens is that sometimes if they don't get it, they go to other people, and that weakens that bond between the husband and wife too. Now, just touching on the points that was mentioned, I believe that at the moment one of the key issues, I know that we shouldn't be focused only on the self-esteem element, but the rise of social networking and the presence of people out there. I just, you know, if we just think about it between ourselves in the sense of 20 years ago and compare the situation then and now. Back then, how we look and the image of ourselves is not something that most people were as concerned. They were concerned because they're going out somewhere where somebody's going to see them.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
You know? Otherwise, the idea of comparing our image with others didn't really exist as much. Now, it's a massive challenge where people are under pressure, some of them, to be seen to be living a particular lifestyle, to be seen adopting a number of styles and clothing and so on and so forth. So social networking has added a lot of pressure in that sense.
So Sheikh, are you saying you're taking into account the fact that although Muslims have a certain culture, that just by the fact that Muslims are living in the West, or even if living in traditional Islamic societies, popular culture via internet, via social media is going to impact maybe women's perceptions of them, sisters' perceptions of themselves, and like objectification of women.
You can't help but that those influences saturating you in some way, or if you're driving and you see a billboard, you're not necessarily looking at the billboard, you're looking at the traffic, I would hope. But what they're advertising unconsciously is suggestive to you. For example, if you drink this juice, you're going to have vitamins, whatever. So I agree with what the Sheikh is saying, but also what I wanted to add is maybe, and we don't know, we're making assumptions, maybe the sister feels some type of pressure in her marriage, maybe unconsciously she feels that she has to be a certain way. Okay, the brother isn't saying that he would like his wife to look a certain way, but you know, as women we pick up on little things, so maybe she's trying to be, I don't know, the role model of wife, and especially if you're new in a marriage, she's taking on some other issues. But as the Sheikh said, it is a team effort, and he needs support as well to know when the signs are, the triggers are, and what to do, and also not to, you know, browbeat her or become her nanny by, you know, locking the fridge door or emptying the cupboards and stuff, because sometimes males don't know what to do. And so they get extreme with their reactions, following her into the bathroom in case she's sick and stuff. But I think they shouldn't really discuss it with other people and just keep it as a private matter, because if you speak to your grandmother, she'll say, well, you know, my God, from a different generation, what's she doing? Or why doesn't she just eat? Or, you know, so that can be a pressure too. I think they should just take their time. And
it is a big challenge issue. I wanted to come back to you, Sheikh, just to ask two questions. One is about the fiqh side, because as the brother mentioned, it's un-Islamic, and you was talking about it being intentionally to harm your body. how does this, in this scenario, pan out in the sense of it may be the actual naturally occurring consequence of a psychological problems, as opposed to somebody doing it in a general sense, but somebody actually, somebody that she may be suffering from depression, anxiety disorder, some sort of self-purging, or it is a kind of method of trying to, cleanse the body, or just a reaction to another psychological disorder.
Maybe self-harm.
Yes,
This is a very important point to understand that in many times in these kind of scenarios, people have to step back and think, okay, is it only this issue, or is there others related to it? The bigger picture is so important, because what we find is often in marital discord or breakdown relationship is that people say, oh, it was so petty over this, or she didn't cook this meal for him, and he's like, how can you not, and he stormed out of the house. But it is not just that meal, it is probably the accumulation of certain ideas or certain problems that have happened, and this is just the final straw, or perhaps it was just an indication of a bigger problem that hasn't been resolved. I feel that in this particular instance, the recommendation is for the brother to be as supportive in many fields and many ways. So number one, to understand the condition and the situation, but number two, the correct way of dealing with it, and that may involve speaking to experts, health professionals, psychologists and others, to be able to be in the picture, because there's a very interesting philosophical idea that's often presented, which is fairly agreed upon rationally, intellectually, that a human being acts upon knowledge. So if I was told, for instance, that if that particular room that you're about to go into is full of small pieces of glass, I have that knowledge. I won't go there barefooted. I will go there wearing shoes, because I know, based on the knowledge, I will get the harm. Yes, it's similar in many instances. That's why the Quran is full of descriptions of what the Day of Judgment is all about. Jannah and Jahannam. Once we have the understanding, we can act upon it. So with these conditions, I think it's very important that we know what we are dealing with, the actual problem that's there, the bigger picture. But not only should we know, but we should be supportive, not give up, explore all possible ways. And sometimes, I mention this to couples. I say, it may need a change of setting, a holiday sometimes, just to go out, to take time out from the current. It could be that they're busy. Sometimes it could be that the in-laws are influencing and the husband doesn't know, or they're throwing in these kind of comments here and there. To pressure this, look at this, look at how she looks, you're not like her, or things like that. Or when I was your age, I was this way, So, in all aspects, one should be ready to tackle and to see what solutions exist.
I just wanted to say that, our religion is a merciful and compassionate religion. And what I get concerned about is when brothers and sisters write in and they say they want the fiqhi, explanation of, oh, it's wrong to harm yourself. We are all unique and we all have our vices, and Islam covers everything. So I think compassion, as the Sheikh said, working together is vital here. It's not about you've been bad, look what you're doing, it's silly. That's not helpful.
I agree. The fiqhi aspect is important, but it's not the only aspect. But I wanted to ask, Sheikh, is this something that you've come across? Because as a counsellor, I know this is very common. This is very good, particularly amongst women, but even as you mentioned, men, particularly men who are into performing or combat sports where they have to make a certain weight, for example, for fights and things like this, for contests. But so I've come across men and women. But I wonder, in terms of the Muslim community, is this something that you've had inquiries about, or people asking questions?
What you find is that these kind of practices are normally a cry for help in the bigger picture, in that if a husband or a wife is not getting what they expect to, and by the way, that's a very important word, what they expect. And expectation is a massive area. Some people enter a marital relationship with a huge list of what they have envisaged life to be like. And when they hit a brick wall, they're struggling. They're thinking, okay, this is not what I signed up for, And so if that happens and they're not getting the support, then they'll do all kinds of things. Sometimes even subconsciously. It's
Exactly.
not that they've
Exactly.
made that
Exactly.
decision.
Yes.
It's just their own body's way of reacting to. It's like a withdrawal thing.
Yeah.
When you're on substances, when you're addicted to something, you're not then deliberately reacting in a sense of saying I want that. It's just the body saying I need what I used to have. So for instance, if the wife is in a loving household with her parents, or she's getting whatever she wants, they are alhamdulillah wealthy, affluent, and then she has a particular lifestyle, then she moves into her husband's house, and he is saying no, this is not needed, this is not needed. Her brain, her intellect may accept it, but her heart may not. And then there's this battle of emotional versus rational,
Reality,
and then the rational says, yeah, you're in a marriage now, he can't afford it, but the emotional saying, but why can't he? Why did I get married and I shouldn't have? And so then it's a kind of
It's a reaction.
It's a reaction to say, look, I'm suffering. It's an indication of problems.
Sometimes there's many cases where they're not actually aware that it has a label. It's a reaction, as the Sheikh said, to dealing with what's going on around them. It doesn't have to be throwing up. It could be excessive exercising. It could be fasting for no particular reason, then eating a lot, then fasting. It has lots of variations.
Starving. It's almost
Exactly.
like starving as opposed to.
But it's about control.
Yeah.
The one thing you can control is your body and what you put in your body. Everything else you can't really control in life. So I think with the sister, she just needs support, and she needs space as well to deal with this and absorb what's happening.
Well, only because of time, we're going to move on. We all pray for them, inshallah, and just to make them aware that there is information on the NHS website actually about
Brilliant.
bulimias.
And there's lots of support groups as well.
Exactly. Okay, I'll go on to the second letter. It reads, "Dear It Takes Two, for 3 years now, I've been trying to find a husband, and I've been divorced for 6 years and have 3 children. I'm 34 years old, and I feel as though time is running out for me. I've tried to go out to centres and mosques, as well as going to events and putting myself out there in a halal way. I've approached friends and made inquiries as to whether there is anyone they could recommend. I've even been on a Shia dating website. The only potential husbands I can find are already married, and my only option seems to be polygamous relationships, but that is not really what I want. Please do give me some suggestions. There seems to be a lack of men, and all of the available ones are looking for women who have never been married." ZP. Okay, where do we start from?
I'm itching to say
Sister,
something.
you sound like you're
No, I'm interested to know what it is that putting myself out there in a halal way actually means.
I think what she means is by going
Help
to
us, sister, help us.
going to events, lectures, any Islamic event, so that people see you come through the door. Someone might say, "Oh, who is that sister? Is she?" I think that's what she means, going to Islamic events. So people in a particular community or her local mosque get to know of her, because a lot of the time you see someone once or twice, you don't build a relationship. So she's putting herself out there. That's what I hope she means. So
Well, we're going to assume the best. We're going to assume the
I
best.
think so. I think you're right.
We
Yes.
assume the best.
I think this is such a major problem, especially in Shiaism. Sunnism is a bit different because they have so many events and they have so many solidified networks where you can go to, say, an Islamic conference, and everyone from every part of, say in America, goes to that conference once a year. It's well known. So you have the young people walking around with their parents, and the parents see somebody, etc. We don't have that, and I think our community is still culturally very cliquey. So if you walk into a mosque and say you're from, say, you're Caucasian, white English, and you go into a predominantly Pakistani community, their cultural systems are different. In that, culturally, the people get married very young. Everybody networks, so you know their cousin, the auntie. And when you're coming in, it's very difficult to break down those barriers because everybody's paired up. Islamically, they get engaged very young and they get married, alhamdulillah. And the problem is we have a big issue with divorced women, that you are basically left on the shelf, especially if you have children, as if you're used goods. And then you try the traditional route, well, you ask some sisters, but then you don't want to get a reputation of being, you know, some vulnerable, needy individual who needs, you know, some brother to grace her with his presence, like some charity case. But it's really difficult. It really is, and it's from all sections. It's from all communities. It's even with sisters who are not married by a certain age, say they're pursuing academics. It's almost like by the time you're 25, if you haven't got anybody, you're pickled. There's a Middle Eastern term where you're pickled, you're left on the shelf, because I think men have so many options that they can be picked. It's a male market at the moment.
I'm just itching to bring the Sheikh in about something. You said something and I thought, Sheikh, so there's a sister's direct scenario, as in the challenge, the difficulty in finding a suitor, but there's also an issue of she seems to she has found potential suitors, but they're married. Is there an issue with polygamy in our community?
Of course, there's a massive problem. I agree with Sister Ruby there that we don't have a system that is established to be able to support not only the sisters who are divorced, but also those who are looking to get married, even at a young age. I think that is lacking. Looking at polygamy specifically, of course, is permissible in Islam with its conditions that are quite clearly stipulated in Sharia law. It is not legal in this country, so that's something to also understand. But you know, the problem is that many would struggle in a polygamous relationship based on the fact that it's very difficult in this day and age, and also in the West, to be able to really balance and to deal effectively with justice, as the Quran mentions, in many ways, with the two wives or whatever. And so it is a major challenge, I think. One thing to understand at the outset here is the problem of our sisters. Certainly, I mean, when it comes to divorcees, that's something we can discuss, but those who are not married to a particular age, I think perhaps there have been instances where there was a chance for them to get married, and they were very selective, and they were quite picky, to be honest. I've dealt with a few cases where one particular case of a sister who's a divorcee, and she said, you know, I'm so and so age, and I want to give her age away, and so on. And then she's like, I'm looking for someone, and then we found her someone, and then she's like, no, but I spoke to my relative, and he's not a Sayyid, or he's not this, and so on and so forth. You know, they get to a particular list of requirements that
like a narrow criteria,
very narrow criteria, you know, and it becomes a very difficult thing to move forward.
I have to interject there,
Please
because
do.
I think I think that statement, a lot of men carry that ideology that, you know, okay, let me rephrase that, not a lot of men, a lot of people, that, you know, you should almost be grateful with the first thing that comes, you know, around for you, because look, he's a male and he's Muslim, but never mind, he can't speak English, and, you know, he doesn't have a job, but bismillah. And it's funny that males can be picky, because let's be honest, it's a male's market out there. You can hide. Yes, it is, Brother Bilal. Let's be honest.
I'm being educated right now.
It's a male market, and I feel like this question is always brought to sisters. Oh, sister, you're being too picky. But he's 2'5". I'm 6'11".
Are there sisters who may be too picky for their own good?
There are, but they are males who are in their 40s or 50s who've never been married because they're too picky, but nobody says, oh, brother, you're being too picky. They're like, oh, inshallah, you know, when you find the right one. And then us poor females, we're like, okay, here you are. I'm meant to be, thanks.
So the problem isn't with, we're not discussing the problem of males not getting married. The problem is the sisters are not getting married. And we have to identify.
And this letter is from a sister.
You know, we deal with a lot of these cases, and we rarely, once in a blue moon, get an email or a question from a brother saying, I'm struggling to find
But this is the
So
issue,
if we're finding the challenge to be the fact that there are many of our sisters who are left there not getting married, either divorcees or getting to a particular age, then that is not, we're not placing the blame entirely on them.
No,
There is
of
a sizable number of them that we know for a fact have had unrealistic expectations because of the society that we live in.
There is
You
a
know,
group, yes, I agree.
you know, there was a brother that I know. He's in his 30s. I said to him, "Why are you not married?" He's like, "Every time I propose to someone, they're like, oh, you're not good looking enough." Well, you know, these kind of things. I mean, you know, the Prophet of Islam says 2 qualities. If they come, you must get them married. Otherwise, there'll be fasad. There'll be corruption.
This is serious.
Akhlaq
This is serious.
and deen. Whomsoever does not marry, when these 2 are there, then, you know, and we have cases upon cases.
It will.
And you know, how many times the parents interject and say, no, he's not from a particular city in our country, or he's not from a particular family or clan. And all these aspects, or he doesn't have enough money. And so later on, or she's studying. Oh, sorry, she's studying.
This
We
is
want her to
true.
finish her education. That's all their rights. That's not a problem. We're not saying here that's haram. We're not saying that they're doing something wrong per se. But what we're saying is it doesn't help. It makes things much worse because later on they finish their education and they're waiting. Okay, where's the person that's going to knock the door, the great person that we've been anticipating, you know, from the heavens? You know, the person that's really going to, you know, transform our life. So that is a challenge that we've got to keep, because you see, let's be absolutely honest. We live in a society where people try different people out. You know, it's a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, isn't
Well,
it?
we have that in our community as well, Shay.
Yes, and then they reach to age of 30, 35, and then they're like, I want to get married now.
Exactly.
So some of our community members, some of the Muslim community, Shia community as well, have had this mentality in their minds, oh, I'm too young, you know, there's always going to be someone else who'd come. There's always that. That's false perception and sense of security.
False perception, sense of security. This is really warming up, but we have to stop for a break, so we hope to see you on the other side. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the part 2. We were just in the middle of something very interesting, but we had to stop for a break. I wanted to ask you, well, both of you, but I'll start with the Sheikh. What are bringing it back to the aspects of polygamy? Can we talk about the pros and the cons? Because there are obviously pros and cons in the context of living in the West.
Sure. Everything in Sharia that's permissible has wisdom behind it and has a particular purpose, but it has a specific usage. So it is not for everyone, but it has certain applications, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we always say, I know it's a cliche and everyone knows it, but Islam is a way of life, it's a constitution for the well-being of human beings in this world and the hereafter. So we need to have solutions. And therefore you have widows, you have orphans that need to be looked after. You have these particular cases. For instance, as one of the advantages is that, you know, polygamy allows them to be looked after financially, psychologically, emotionally, for the widow as well as the orphans, for someone to really support them. Yes. You have, for instance, people who are living in particular parts, different parts of the world, and it's hard to you know, to have one relationship. They want to have, like, you know, wives in different places.
Yes,
for
yes,
instance,
yes,
as example, you have the cases where, yes, there are ladies who simply, you know, want to be looked after and protected and share a house and to be in a marital relationship, but they just can't find somebody and they're happy in a polygamous relationship. So that has its usage. But also the downside or the restrictions is financially is draining, emotionally is draining. It is sometimes very difficult to keep the bond with the first wife when an individual marries a second, because you know they're more inclined towards a new relationship and so on. It affects the children negatively, you know, when they see that. It sometimes breaks families, you know, it creates discord and a huge number of issues. I remember reading that, as Sister was saying, within the Ahl Sunnah community, our brothers and sisters, certainly in Europe or in the UK, this is more on the increase. And I was reading articles about how some of the sisters saying, yeah, you know, we're happy with that, or we're okay with it, you know, that's part of life, we've just settled for that. But I don't think it's as easy as they've portrayed it to be. I think it's much more difficult. And I think it's very complex, but it's specifically in the West. You see, let's be honest, naturally, and I think Sister will probably add more to that, because it's naturally, a female wants to be looked after and protected by one man and doesn't want that shared with others, in the sense that it's, you know, there's a whole theological discussion about Jannah, and you know, the men have hur al-ain, and what do women have? You know, I know that's a separate discussion, but some of the scholars, some of the scholars actually say that as far as females are concerned, they're not looking for numbers. They're looking for one person who will look after them, and that gives them the most satisfaction and happiness. That's the idea, that in paradise, it is not like the way men have been created, so to speak. That's one theory, at least. So if we put that into practice, in reality, especially in the West, many of our sisters struggle, and it's a very difficult concept to accept when it comes to polygamy and their husbands marrying a second wife simply because they feel that that's betrayal, they feel that they're not good enough. Only if there are specific reasons, like for instance, they can't have children, or sometimes they allow. But these are rare cases, not the common. You know.
Excellent point, Sister Ruby. Bearing in mind that there are an abundance of women in the Western world, and it seems to be a shortage of Muslim in terms of the Muslim community in particular. But I just wanted to throw that out there before I ask you your perspective on the pros and cons of polygamy.
God, okay, right.
In relation to this, it's all in relation to this letter,
yes.
But we're exploring it in a wide sense.
Well, as we know, Allah has created provisions for every, anything that we need. And polygamy, as the Sheikh has discussed in detail, that there are reasons. Also, the man might have needs that one person cannot fulfill. Let's just be honest, put it on the table. But I don't think most women wake up one day and say, oh, I would love to be in a polygamous relationship. We're not even programmed as children. Your parents don't tell you, oh, you're going to become wife number 2, 3, 4, whatever.
That's not part of the fairy tale.
It's not part of, no, it's just not. A woman wants to be the queen of her own house and have the attention of, most of the time, one male. Now, I have friends who are in polygamous relationships who are very open about it, and it does work for them. But there are challenges, just human beings being competitive. Oh, you sat next to her, you went to dinner with her, but I needed you to fix the roof, just an example, but that was your time with this one. Well, Eid. Are we all going to go to the Eid prayer together? What will the community say? Are we going to have like a commune? How is this going to work?
Well,
and then the children.
We have 2 or 3 Eids nowadays, so I mean,
so you go to a different centre, you're saying, go to this one with number 1, this one. People talk. And I think what it is sisters feel, many sisters feel inadequate, that they're not seeing, they internalise the fact that their husband may want to use that Islamic, what should we say?
A proviso?
Proviso, yes, and internalise it as something's wrong with me, or I'm older, or they see it as a betrayal. I think it takes a certain type of woman to be confident in herself and in her Islam to say, if she wants to, okay, I'm okay with that. But I think many sisters going back to this letter who are divorced almost feel insulted that you're married and you're just coming to me as if I'm some charity case. And by the way, does your wife know you're approaching me? And who else knows? Who else have you spoken about this? Because if I reject you, is this my last chance? And if I accept you, am I going to be seen as a home breaker? A home wrecker, sorry.
Yeah.
So you have all these things. And for many sisters, you're trying to be on your deen, you're trying to do everything. And then you really have this hope where Allah is going to come through for you. He says He creates people in pairs. Where is your other half? Oh, it's somebody who's married.
Well,
brilliant.
Because of time, I'm thinking we're going to have to move on. But just in summary, I'd say that we inshallah, that we pray for the sister. Maybe it's part of a test
Oh, that's
to
a
be-
word we hate hearing.
Can I just mention, we haven't offered her solution.
Exactly.
Let's
I was
let's
gonna
just
summarize
quickly,
the
yes,
solution.
yes,
Please.
yes.
Be my
Because
guest,
we've
be
talked
my
about
guest.
polygamy,
Yeah.
but we really haven't talked about what
Specific,
can
yeah,
the
what-
sister do in actual fact. First of all, let's be absolutely honest. It's not about whether we don't like that word or whatever.
Exactly.
Different people go through hardships and tribulations, and it's actually better for themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there is not a single human being that won't go through this universal law of calamities and
Test,
bala and
definitely.
tests. Each person has their own way. It's the way we deal with it. We can't say, oh, is this punishment or is this a test? Well, God wants to see for yourself. He knows how you come out of this examination. That's the first thing. The second thing to bear in mind is that the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to struggle in life and to keep working and not to give up and to be
Hope.
positive and to have that sense of hope that this will be achieved. Now, it's beautiful that we have narrations from the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam that say that an individual who really entrusts their affairs in God, when they ask God, they absolutely believe that their haja is right next to the door. You know, it's there. Once they open it, it's there. That's the one who entrusts God and knows if it's good for them, Allah will give it to them. They're so confident in the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom that, you know, whatever's happening, but it's not that they sing at home thinking, okay, you know, I'm going to entrust God and whoever comes, comes. No, that they're striving, they're working hard. Practically for the sister, what we encourage her to do is, in addition to what she's doing, to approach scholars. Because sometimes what happens is scholars are aware of existence
the
of few
community.
people who are looking, and they get approached. They're like, okay, I'm looking. Do you know anyone? And so on and so forth. That would be a good idea. So that, you know, at least if they're known to scholars, then the scholars one day, a few of them in a local community, whatever, if they come across somebody who's looking, immediately they can recommend them and put them together. The other my humble recommendation to the sister is, I know she has children and it's difficult, but to be involved in an Islamic organization or a charity or a project, that comes with a lot of barakah, it comes with a lot of thawab, but it also comes with a lot of tawfiq. These are three things, tried and tested, of those who serve God for the betterment of humanity, and Allah does not abandon them. You know, how many times people have been in these setups and they've found their potential husband and things have worked out for them. And even if they haven't, they shouldn't go there for that purpose. They're going there to serve God the Almighty and to make a positive contribution in society. However, things open up for them. People say,
one of the blessings may be.
Maybe, but it is a very good possibility. But because they're making a difference and they're there, people saying, okay, they're very active, they're taking part, this, that, and doing whatever they can in making a good contribution to society. So that's what I would also recommend, and also seek the assistance of friends, relatives,
say
people,
sisters, you know,
sisters.
network.
Speak to them. Don't be afraid. You know,
And there's
and,
no
So it
and
sounds
if
like
they-
the sister's on the. It sounds like the sister's on the right.
and if
track.
she finds someone
But she needs
who
to continue.
believes, she knows that he's not married or he's looking, let her not be hesitant to go and ask him directly. Because that's a taboo thing as
Yes,
well.
yes.
Sayyidah Khadija
Could you-
proposed
so-
to the
so-
Holy
so could
Prophet
you- sorry,
sallallahu alaihi
Sheikh,
wasallam.
Could you repeat that for
Yes.
the,
The point is, today we see
listening-
this.
for the
We
listening
see this.
audience.
Unfortunately, this sometimes cultural. I don't know what it is. Inclination to idea that the lady, the female, has to be asked herself. She's waiting for that man to come and propose. Whereas it goes across the board. A female at university who's 19 and sees someone who wants to get married, she needs to go to her father and say, you know what, I need to get married to that person, or I want to propose to that person. Can we do that? Under Sharia, everything is acceptable.
This is permissible, yes.
Absolutely. Sayyidah Khadija did it.
Okay.
Sayyidah
Excellent point.
Khadija is the one who
Wonderful.
proposed to the Prophet.
Only because of time. Because we could just
No.
get in this one.
That's-
But please summarize, sister,
okay,
and then we're going to
I'm
move.
just
Just
gonna say
in a
that-
sentence, please.
In a sentence, okay. That's wonderful, but as we all know, in reality, that's a different thing. If I was to approach, giving myself as an example, a brother or his dad, I would get a reputation of being loose. In our community, a
So
lot
it's-
of people
so
do.
it's something-
Sheikh, you've
so
got
it's
to
something-
admit, in
no,
our
no, no, no,
community,
so
Don't
if
worry
I went
about
to
the
someone's
reputation.
So
dad,
it's in the sunnah,
Put your-
but it's something that we have to work on in terms of as a
Put your
community
trust
to
in God.
destigmatize
Don't worry
this.
about reputation. Put your
Inshallah.
trust in God.
oh God.
Just because of time, let me get to the. Ooh, this is good. Get to the the third and final letter, inshallah. It reads, I am engaged and soon to be married, inshallah. I love my fiance. He is loving and caring. I'm very much looking forward to being married and looking forward to married life. However, I feel hesitant because things don't always pan out as expected in marriage, and marriage can be difficult. Some things inevitably do not work out. I mentioned to my fiance that within our marriage contract, I want to stipulate the right of divorce. He was very defensive and almost gave the impression that this would most definitely not be put into the contract. I still want to marry my fiance, but I want to have the right to divorce as well. What do I do? If I don't have the right to, if I don't have this right stipulated in our contract, can I still initiate a divorce if things go wrong?
It's a very common problem this day and age. This whole discussion is about what's known as the prenuptial agreement or contract before marriage. And the idea that has emerged recently is because, unfortunately, there are things that are happening in marital life that people didn't expect before marriage, and then they're stuck or they're not aware of what to do. Personally speaking, as just a brother, I strongly recommend prenuptial agreements. It helps us, makes our workload less, and the reason being is because of the rise in relationships that some of the men are undertaking within the marital life, outside, with other women, for instance, which is not in agreement, which is not something that their wives are happy with, or doing things which are completely against what they set out initially to do. So if there is something that is agreed upon beforehand, it helps frame. The Quran tells us in Surah Baqarah that if you have a loan with anyone, make sure you write it down. Everything is set. Today we've learnt in the West that everything is legally,
Binding.
stipulated and binding and
Terms
so on.
conditions,
Now,
terms and
what are the Sharia stipulations as far as divorce is concerned? Normally, under the normal contract between the husband and the wife does not have the right for divorce, normally. Except in certain circumstances. For instance, if the husband is not fulfilling his Islamic obligation in marriage, so there are a number of obligations upon him, such as looking after financially, such as the intimacy, such as a few aspects. If these are not fulfilled, then she can go to a jurist or a representative of a jurist or a marja and initiate this complaint, and he makes the investigation, and after a while, if the husband is not responding, then he, the jurist or his representative, can then make the divorce happen, but not the wife. The wife can't do that. She doesn't have that jurisdiction or authority in a normal relationship. Now, in a prenuptial, what they could stipulate before the marriage is to say, look, if for instance, you marry another wife, or you undertake temporary marriage, or we go to another country, I have the right to have divorce. Doesn't end the marriage, because what happens is the husband gives her the wakala. Wakala means representation. He's the only one who can issue a divorce, in addition to a jurist, but jurist is only in certain circumstances. He gives her that right based on the fulfillment of certain criteria. If that happens, then yes. So then what happens if, God forbid, if they're having this relationship, marital relationship, they enter it, and then he is found to be married or has broken that, then she has the ability. She just goes and says, look, he's broken it. The marja or the jurist doesn't have to go through all the investigation. Just finds out, has he done it or not? Hasn't done it. Okay. Do you want to divorce? Doesn't end the marriage. She can just continue, but she has the ability to. She has the ability to. So it gives her, empowers her with the opportunity to keep the understanding and the mutual relationship ongoing, as opposed to what we find in this day and age. Some of our sisters are really stuck and they're so down. They're like, okay, I didn't know my husband was like this. He did this. What are my options? What can I do? And marriage, within marriage, in other words, as we just said, polygamy, is permissible, and is not enough as a criteria to initiate divorce.
What
It is
about
not enough.
muta?
Yeah, muta then comes into the specifics. So, according to certain jurists, the husband is permitted to undertake temporary marriage within, if he's already married, a full permanent one,
marriage, yeah.
to a Muslim. But if it's a non-Muslim, he has to seek the permission of his Muslim wife.
Okay.
But if she's a Muslim, he doesn't need to.
Sister Ruby, I have a question for
Yeah.
you related to this letter, because it sounds as if the sister's worried about being trapped. Apart from the clause potentially being empowering for her as a woman, do you think that maybe sisters like herself who are thinking about getting married, preparing to get married, sisters who are engaged, they need some sort of counselling or preparation from a woman's point of view?
I think both couples need.
There's a couple they do, but specifically from a
I
woman's
think
point
prior
of view.
to marriage, there needs to be some, I don't know, mentors or scholars or whoever, who both sit down and speak to the individual. So you have a female who's been married or is married, who gives her the lowdown of what marriage is really like and what her rights are. Because sometimes you feel embarrassed. I think the poor sister, she really does want to marry this brother, but she's almost scared to initiate her having that clause, which is her right Islamically, because there's time invested in it. What will people say, etc. But I think if the brother is, inshallah, God-fearing, and they're genuinely going in this with the best of intentions, what is there to fear that she puts in the clause to secure herself? What is there to fear? It doesn't mean that she's going to use it like a get out of jail card, like a bail bond card. It's just a stipulation to say, God forbid, if things get messy, then I have my back covered. Like insurance, car insurance.
Sounds good, sounds good. What does he have to fear? A lot of the young brothers that I speak to, they say, in regards to that point, if it was necessary, Allah would have put it there. Women can be so emotional, I'm worried that, she just reacts on her emotion.
We're not children and
mental. Just, why didn't Allah put it there? So, I mean, I don't know what you're
Allah has put it
saying.
there if you
That's why
want
you
it.
have to have certain criteria. So if these criteria are met, or if they're violated, then that's when the permissibility or the idea is given to the wife to initiate, not just for the sake of just having her. So
there is a right, but it's specific, and so what the brothers are asking, young brothers sometimes say, what Allah would have put it there in the general sense, just for anything, I'm unhappy about this, so hey, khalas.
Well, he's given us provisions, as the Shaykh has said. We can use our brains. Let's not be afraid to use our common sense and put those things there as a protection. And if he really does love the sister, what's the harm in having things covered? I don't like this impression that brothers have that women are erratic, emotionally crazy beings. We're just going to come out there and say, I want a divorce. Yes, there are some women who do that. But generally, you've invested time, energy, you're trying to please Allah, you're trying to do the right thing. It's very difficult for someone to, most of the time, come up with a decision to divorce. It's not something that is fun and games, especially Islamically, if we're trying to please Allah. It's not fun and games. So having that provision is to our gain. We're not children where we're going to say, I want this, I want this. So I'm kind of a bit insulted by the brothers. Some of the brothers.
I don't think this is insulting. I think what it's meant, just in defence.
For the brothers.
Yes. Not because I'm one of them. But just to say that, of course, we have to be clear in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether we like it or not, this is not in any way, astaghfirullah, sound sexist or anything like that, but there has been this authority given to the males and not the females in the marriage to initiate the divorce. That comes with wisdom. Why is that? Why I think that's the key, that's the point that some of the brothers are saying. Okay, why from the initial stage? Why, as the case in this country? In this country, both the husband and wife can say, I want the divorce, end of. There's no, and a lot of sisters find that difficult to understand, I feel, from the discussions I've had. They're like, okay, but why can he initiate divorce and I can't? Why? What's wrong with me? I'm also in a position I should be able to. And the normal response is, okay, you can. There are provisions, as we mentioned, and can put yourself in the position. provided, I keep repeating, provided that there are certain elements that are transgressed, certain issues that are not abided by. But I don't want to go into this discussion of idea of the gender differences and stuff like that. Each creation of God comes with its powerful blessings and what they are good at.
This is
Women
true.
are better than men in many aspects, and men are better than women in some aspects as well. This idea of men and women are the same is wrong. In the West, it's been espoused, drilled, categorically placed in people's minds. They want to make sure males and females are the same. No, they're not the same. In the eyes of God, yes, equal in the sense that the most important or the highest is the one who is pious or God conscious. But each comes with their own responsibility. It's like me saying, okay, excuse the example, but cucumbers and tomatoes are the same. But they're not the same. Oh, why are you discriminating against carrots? But the carrots have purpose and cucumbers have another purpose. They're vegetables at the end of the day. That's right. Overall, they're vegetables, but each has a particular different color, different usage, different way they're eaten, and so on and so forth. Just a simple example. So when it comes to marital life, there is a reason why the husbands have that permission or have that, jurisdiction or authority, and the females don't.
Right.
But that's not to say that there is a deficiency in the females. It's because they're being empowered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this powerful, very useful ability to show love and compassion and to express their warmth and kindness much better than they are great. This fallacy of the husband or the man can be take the role of the mother, as we see today. That in this country they've changed the laws as far as the paternity.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what we can do now is the wife can go work and the husband can stay, and he will get paternity for 6 months. The wife can go work. You see what they're trying to do is they're trying to mix the roles and the responsibilities. That's problematic. That's problematic in many ways. We're not saying it's haram, it's not that, but we're trying to change the creation of God. That's how God is created, and that's how things are presented for the
order,
well-being.
natural order, right?
This is the order. Allah wants it this way. And He knows He's our creator. He wants to. But this is not discrimination. This is not gender attacking or somehow sexism or trying to place one above the other, as has been presented by some feminist movements and the Western values to say, there's Islam, this doesn't allow this, and so on.
For it to be fair, it must be mathematically equal.
Yes, it's everything. Oh, why is this right here? Why is that right not there? And so on and so forth. Why is that? And you get to stages, some other sisters fall into that trap and they start saying, oh, but yeah, it's true, we're concerned about Sharia law, it's male dominated, it's a male market out there, those kind of things. We have to be careful not to follow the same terminology as what the others outside Islam wants us to and accept as far as the teaching.
Maybe
Can
the
I bring this
brothers,
okay.
maybe the brothers need to be, acting out what they should be doing, and the sisters wouldn't have this complex. And what I was just thinking was, maybe the sister needs to tell her fiance and his family, if you had a daughter in your family who was getting married, wouldn't you want to make sure that she is secure and that she has an insurance policy behind her should anything happen? Because I think they feel intimidated by, maybe she wants the big wedding, the God forbid whatever else, and after that she wants to call it quits and take her dowry and thank you very much. But she needs to come at it in, I think, a humble way and just say, if you had a daughter, you were daughters at one time, wouldn't you feel secure if, one of your own had these provisions? And then get a big, fat, permanent marker and just write it in the clause, and then there you go.
How would you advise him if it was he needed to, just from another perspective, he needed to assure his wife, hey, there's nothing to worry about?
If there's nothing to worry about, let her put that in her clause. Actions speak louder than words. People change. You get emotional. Someone says something. No, I never said that. I don't remember what you said. No. Let's be positive. It's not a bad thing.
We have the clause, isn't it? When we take out a mortgage, your house will
Exactly.
be repossessed if you don't keep up the payments. How is it that when we sign the mortgage agreement, we're like, excuse me, I don't like that. That's insulting to me, or that's suggesting that I'm gonna not make payments. You are actually insinuating that I'm not a good, repayment person, honourable person. You're questioning my trust. No one says that. it has to be there because not all human beings, far from it, are perfect or at least trustworthy. So what we need to do practically for this brother, I think, in a number of ways. First of all, he must not see this as a threat. What some brothers see this is that, like, oh, hold on, you're taking away my right. You're taking away something that I am being entrusted by God. You know, how could that be? But it's not. Things change. We're in a different climate, culture. In the 21st century now, in the West, things are different. You know, there are many ways in which breakdowns happen. There are many obstacles out there. So we want to reduce them. We want to keep the relationship as harmonious and as strong as possible. So there are provisions that we can follow. But the other thing we can do is, for the sister, my humble recommendation is that she tries to encourage maybe people who are close to him, like his friends or his parents or even a scholar, if she's really feeling if she's feeling strongly about it and he's strongly against it, not to allow this, God forbid, to break their relationship. That would be a really shame, you know. Sometimes shaitan can get in the final stages, you know, and really cause havoc. So to be aware of satanic you know, ways and whisperings, and to try and solicit the help of people who can explain it in a calm manner. Sometimes when it's the spouse trying to explain, the husband or vice versa will just block and say, no, I know where you're coming from. But when it comes from someone else, they may accept it, or they may slowly get to grips with it.
And that's why I said go to the women in the family, his mother, his sisters, his grandmothers, and just humble yourself and just say, you know, what would you do in my situation? You can get a lot more done with love and being nice than being, no, this is what I want, what's wrong with your son, it's not fair. You know, women be smart.
Education, understanding and awareness.
It has been a pleasure. This episode has gone so fast. Thank you so much, Sheikh Hilly, Sister Ruby. The time has gone like that, but thank you ever so much to the two of you, and thank you for staying with us for the duration of It Takes Two. Assalamu alaikum.
Do you need some relationship advice? Do you have marital problems or questions? Perhaps you want to get married and you have questions for us. Please send your thoughts or questions to ittakes2@sophiatv.com.